I realized the end was near, not because of quarterly numbers or rumors in the break room, but because Chad, our new interim CEO, Reed's stepson, armed with a degree in recreation management and a talent for failing upward, replaced the industrial coffee machine with a kombucha tap that smelled like fermented gym socks. For 12 years, I served as the environmental compliance manager for Apex Industrial Solutions, a fancy title, meaning I was the only person standing between a deteriorating, leaking, chemical-heavy plant and a federal investigation that would make Chernobyl look like a minor parking infraction. I knew every line, every permit, and every metaphorical skeleton buried under the place. And considering the safety record before I arrived, almost literal ones too. The summons to Chad's office came at 9:15 a.m. on a Tuesday. The email subject line read, "Synergy and Realignment," which might as well have said, "Bring a box for your stuff." I stepped into what used to be his stepfather's office, once filled with old leather, cigar smoke, and tension. Now it looked like an Apple store collided with a WeWork. Everything was glass and brushed aluminum. Chad sat behind a desk that cost more than my car, vaping something that smelled like cotton candy and poor judgment. No socks, just loafers showing bare ankles, the unofficial uniform for people who have never done physical work. "Dana, take a seat," he said, gesturing toward a chair that looked like IKEA's version of a torture device. "We're doing some pivoting today." "Pivoting?" I repeated flatly. "I don't do cheerful. I do EPA audits and hazardous waste logs." "Exactly," he said. "We value your legacy, but we're moving toward a more agile, cloud-native approach to compliance. We need fresh eyes, digital natives." "Chad, the EPA isn't cloud-native," I replied. "They're federal agents with clipboards and guns who measure benzene levels in groundwater. I built our compliance system from the ground up. It's not an app." He smiled that condescending smile people get when they think buying crypto makes them experts. "We hired a consultancy, Green Tech Vision. They'll automate your workflow, so we have to let you go, effective immediately." I stared at him, listening to the hum of Ventilation Unit 4, the one with the fraying belt that needed replacement next week or the filtration system would fail. I knew that. He didn't. "You're firing me?" I asked. "We're right-sizing," he corrected, tapping his vape. "Please hand over your badge and laptop. Security is outside to help you collect your things." Quick side note before this gets worse. If you're enjoying watching a nepotism hire dismantle a multi-million-dollar company in real time, hit subscribe and like. It helps the algorithm almost as much as beer helps me tolerate remembering this. I stood, feeling a strange calm. The same feeling I had when I once found a leaking solvent drum in Wing 14 and had to call hazmat while the plant manager panicked in a corner. "So we're clear," I said. "You're ending my access, taking the laptop, telling me my services are no longer needed." "That's the legal version, yes. Sign here for severance. 2 weeks' pay." 2 weeks. 12 years, keeping this place compliant, dodging fines that could bankrupt a small country. And he offered 2 weeks and a smile. "Okay," I said. I pulled out my worn badge and set it on his glass desk with a distinct click. Then the laptop. "The password's under the keyboard," I said. "But Chad, compliance isn't just files." "We've got it covered," he said, already looking at his phone, probably checking whatever app he uses to disappoint people. "Don't be bitter." I wasn't bitter. I was nuclear. I walked out with security behind me. Poor Larry. 10 years of sharing Christmas donuts, staring at the floor. He knew. Everyone who actually worked knew. "I'm sorry, Dana," he muttered at the gate. "Don't worry about it," I said, lighting a cigarette as soon as I hit the sidewalk. The smoke tasted like freedom and incoming chaos. "Just keep your head down tomorrow around 8 a.m. "Why? What happens at 8? "The future," I said, "or the past catching up." Because Chad made one major mistake. He assumed compliance was a department. It wasn't. It was me, and he assumed the automated reports were company property. They weren't. They ran on my personal credentials, linked to my encryption keys, built around a heartbeat confirmation every 24 hours. A dead man's switch. If I didn't log in by 7:52 a.m. to confirm I was active and employed, the system didn't stop. It defaulted to transparency mode. I got into my rattling 2016 Ford Escape, glanced at the shiny office facade, and imagined Chad congratulating himself for saving $85,000 in salary. He didn't save anything. He pulled the pin on a grenade and dropped it in his own lap. I drove to the liquor store. I had a date with a bottle of gin and a laptop that was about to become the most disruptive device in the state. You need to understand something about manufacturing in the Rust Belt. It's not like the tech startups Chad worships. It's not clean code and beanbags. It's a constant battle with physics and chemistry. Apex makes specialized coatings for automotive parts. Sounds boring. It's not. We use chemicals with names longer than Chad's resume. Xylene, toluene, hexalent chromium. The kind that don't just harm you, they practically mutate your shadow. My job wasn't paperwork. It was managing a monster built from old hardware, custom scripts, and pure necessity. County, state, and federal agencies all required different reports. A missed pH reading could be $10,000. A forgotten drum could be $37,500 per day. The Title V air report could decide whether we were poisoning a school. Chad didn't know the ghosts in the system, like Sensor 3 that always reads high because a bird built a nest in it years ago. You have to manually subtract 12%. Too high? Felony. Too low? Fraud. Only I knew the math. The previous CEO, Chad's stepfather, once told me, "The inspector is here and he's in a bad mood. Fix it." I walked that inspector around for 4 hours, overwhelmed him with data, and he signed off just to escape. That was the job. Drowning regulators in accuracy while patching real problems in the background. But to Chad, I was overhead. A legacy cost. He didn't know I'd been doing 3 jobs due to budget cuts. Environmental manager, safety officer, and unofficial IT support. After getting fired, I went home to my functional, slightly outdated kitchen. I poured iced tea, saving the gin for later. At 2 p.m., the afternoon shift was starting. Normally, I'd be adjusting the thermal oxidizer remotely when it overheated. Now, I imagine the alarm going off in my empty office. Chad had created a 4-day gap before the consultants arrived. No oversight, no monitoring. And then there was the cloud log. My masterpiece. Our old hardware couldn't upload data, so I built a system where sensors talked to a local server, the server to my script, and the script to an AWS bucket, under my name on my credit card, because IT didn't approve the request fast enough in 2017. Shadow IT to them. Getting things done to me. Chad didn't ask for the AWS password. He didn't even know it existed. So I opened my personal MacBook, logged into AWS, and saw all systems running. I could have shut it down, deleted the account. But I wasn't being petty. I was being compliant. I opened the scheduled task. Transmit daily compliance report tomorrow, 7:52 a.m. I disabled manual review, disabled error correction, told the system, send the raw data, all of it, no filters. The tea tasted cold and sharp, perfect. There's a heavy kind of silence when disaster approaches. I spent the evening doing normal things, feeding my anxious cat, watering plants, eating microwave lasagna. Meanwhile, the raw data streamed in, oxidizer temperature high, pH out of range, VOC sensor showing a fault, which the EPA interprets as worst-case emissions. I poured gin. I considered warning Chad. I imagined him dismissing me with buzzwords. He needed to learn. Regulations are written in blood and money. He was about to pay. I slept surprisingly well. At 7:45 a.m., I sat at my MacBook. The script counted down. I could cancel. I could delete the API key. A missed report would be a $5,000 fine. Manageable. But Chad didn't treat me like a minor issue. He treated me like waste. At 7:50, my phone buzzed. Brenda from accounting texted, "Chaos here. Chad's touring with the consultants." They asked for the compliance dashboard, and he pointed at the fire alarm pane. "I miss you," I smiled. At 7:52 a.m., packet 1 cent, packet 2 cent, packet 3 cent, packet 4 cent. Server response, 200 OK, done. Apex Industrial had just reported multiple violations to the federal system under the default company account since HR removed my name yesterday. I closed the laptop. "Mr. Business," I told my cat, "let's order breakfast." At 8 a.m., EPA Region 5 opened. Automated parsing takes about 12 minutes. By 8:15, a red alert would be flashing. By 8:30, Steve, who loves issuing fines, would see it. By 9 o'clock, field agents would be en route. I sipped my coffee in peaceful silence, the kind I hadn't felt in 12 years. Then, at 8:45 a.m., the messages started. "Larry, uh-oh, federal plates. 2 black SUVs just pulled up to the main gate. They didn't stop for badge check. They flashed their badges and drove straight in." I actually laughed. It was the EPA emergency response team. They don't wait for the gate arm. They function as the gate arm. Brenda texted, "Chad just ran out of his office. He looks pale. Who are these guys in the blue jackets?" Blue jackets meant this wasn't a standard inspection. It was the serious unit. Based on the frantic messages and what I know about federal protocol, I could imagine the scene. Chad likely greeted them in the lobby with his CEO welcome expression, trying to shake hands. "Gentlemen, welcome to Apex. We weren't expecting visitors, but we're always happy to." The lead agent, probably Miller, who dislikes small talk, would cut him off. We received a self-reported critical exceedance at 7:52 a.m., indicating an uncontrolled VOC release and a pH violation. "Where is Dana Kowalski?" That would be the moment everything shifted. "Chad, Dana is no longer with us. We restructured." Agent Miller, "You fired the compliance officer and didn't assign a replacement before the reporting cycle?" Chad, "We have consultants. Green Tech Vision." Agent Miller, "I don't care if you hired superheroes. Your system just indicated a corrosive discharge into the municipal water table. We are issuing an immediate cease and desist. Full shutdown." Brenda again, "OMG, they're shutting us down. Alarms are going off." Chad is yelling at the consultants. The consultants are crying. A shutdown order is the most severe option. It isn't a short pause. It means cut power to the production lines, vent the piping, and move staff to the break room. Every minute offline costs roughly $4,500. Larry texted. They put yellow tape around the mixing room. They're taking samples. Chad is calling his dad. His dad is golfing in Florida. I could picture Chad sweating through his inexpensive dress shirt. He had assumed compliance was a checklist or annoyance. He never understood it was the foundation of the whole operation. I switched to doing laundry and folded towels. The contrast between my calm morning and their internal crisis was almost ironic. All of it happened simply because I wasn't there. Around 10:30 a.m., I got a call from a number I recognized. I let it go to voicemail. The transcript said, "Miss Kowalski, this is Agent Miller, EPA Region 5. We are on site at Apex. We have questions about the data logs. Management cannot access the historical calibration records. Please return the call." I didn't. I'm a private citizen now with no obligation to respond. The next call was from Apex HQ. Chad. I watched the phone vibrate repeatedly like an angry trapped insect. I ignored 3 calls. Finally, on the 4th ring, I answered silently and listened. "Dana, thank God. Pick up, please." He sounded panicked, like someone who just damaged a car he didn't own. "This is Dana," I said, steady and professional. "There's been a misunderstanding," he said. "The EPA is here. They say the sister reported a leak, but there is no leak. It's a glitch. You know how to fix those, right?" "I do," I answered. "It's likely a calibration issue. Requires a manual offset based on humidity and barometric pressure." "Yes, exactly. Can you log in and tell them that?" "Just remote in and fix it." I took a long drag of my cigarette. I don't usually smoke indoors, but today I made an exception. "Chad, I can't." "Why not? I'll pay you. Consultant rate." "I can't because I don't work for Apex. Accessing your systems now would violate the Computer Fraud and Abuse Act. It would be illegal. You don't want me committing a felony." "Dana, please. They shut down the line. We're losing $5,000 a minute." "That sounds like a management is." "Ask your consultants. Maybe they can handle the EPA." There was a pause, then shouting, "You caused this! You planned this!" "I didn't do anything, Chad. That's the issue. You fired the pilot mid-flight and are surprised the plane is descending?" I hung up and blocked his number, but I knew how corporate fear escalates. HR would reach out next, then legal. Eventually, they would all arrive at my inbox. I opened my laptop and created a document titled Proposal for Crisis Remediation and Consulting Services. I typed retainer fee and hesitated. I initially considered asking for a year's salary, about $150K. But then I remembered his comments, the severance, the badge on the desk. I deleted those numbers and typed $2 million, no negotiation. I whispered to the cat, "It's fair," and kept typing. By noon, Apex's situation had moved from minor crisis to full-scale disaster. The EPA hadn't only shut down the mixing line, they had issued a site-wide stop work order. The reason? When they asked Chad for the MSDS documents for the tank farm, he gave them a binder from 2019 that I had clearly labeled obsolete/do not use. He handed outdated safety documentation to federal agents. So they assumed everything was compromised. They sealed off the warehouse. Larry, again. "It's a parking lot here. Truck drivers are backed up down the road. They're furious. It's like a horn orchestra. Drivers get paid per mile, so if they're waiting, dispatch gets involved. Dispatch calls Apex's customers. Ford Motor Company was undoubtedly hearing about delays. A chain reaction, a single error turning into industry-level disruption. Around 1 p.m., an email arrived, not from Chad, but Linda, the HR director. The subject read, "Urgent, exit interview and intellectual property. She wrote that I was withholding critical passwords and that all IP belonged to Apex. They demanded immediate access to the EPA reporting gateway and threatened legal action. Classic Linda. Formal wording mixed with implied pressure. I didn't respond immediately. I wanted them to feel the silence of a factory floor, not producing anything. A costly quiet. I showered, used my nicer products, took my time. Self-care matters when you're dealing with corporate collapse. At 2:30 p.m., I finally replied, "Linda, I am not withholding anything. I returned all company property yesterday. The passwords you're referencing are for a cloud system running on my personal AWS account, paid for by me, created because your department denied my 2017 server request. See the attached email chain. The AWS environment is not company property. It is a third-party service. I am that third party. I am open to discussing a transfer of ownership. However, I am currently booked with other commitments. Regards, Dana." I attached the 2017 email where the old IT director, her nephew, said, "We don't need cloud servers. Excel is fine." I had documentation for everything. By 3 p.m., internal Slack, via Brenda's screenshots, was falling apart. Sales VP. Ford is threatening to cancel. Ops manager, we're shut down. EPA locked the breaker box. Chad, everyone remain calm. We're leveraging a solution. It was corporate panic in real time. Then it clicked for them. Brenda sent a photo from the conference room. Chad, Linda, and Gary, corporate counsel, staring at a whiteboard. Someone had written, "Only Dana knows." They realized it wasn't just about the passwords. It was the operational knowledge, calibration offsets, known sensor quirks, the tank variations. Even with access, they couldn't interpret the data. I noticed the sunlight shifting across my floor. The plant had now been down for 6 hours. Estimated production loss, $1.6 million, plus daily EPA penalties, plus possible contract breach with Ford. They were running out of time. My phone rang again. Apex Legal. Gary. "Hello, Gary." "Dana," he exhaled. "We reviewed the AWS matter. You're right. It's complicated." "It's not complicated," I said. "It's mine." "Fine. What do you want? We need this fixed today." "I sent a proposal," I said. "Check your inbox." I heard clicks as he opened the file. Quiet. Then a weak cough. "Dana, this says $2 million. "Yes," I said pleasantly. "Correct. This is extortion." "No, Gary. Extortion is demanding money for no service. I'm offering specialized consulting to prevent federal seizure of a $50 million operation. It's a reduced rate. If the Title V permit is revoked, the company is done. Scrap value only." He breathed heavily. "I can't authorize T." "Then call Chad's father in Florida. He'll understand the urgency." I'll call you back." He hung up. I walked to the window. No smoke from the industrial park. Idle stacks. It was one of the clearest sunsets I'd seen. I made a simple ham and cheese sandwich. Ate slowly while watching birds outside. No need to rush. Every minute increased my leverage. At 5:15 p.m., the phone rang again. A Florida area code. The founder, the big boss, Todd. Todd was a tough man. He was the type who smoked inside the plant back in the 80s and dumped used oil on the weeds. But he respected strength. He despised weakness. And right now, his company looked weak. I wiped the crumbs off my face and answered. "Hello, Todd." "Dana." His voice rough, like gravel in a blender. "What's going on?" "I'm on the 14th hole. and I get a call saying the feds have taped off my loading dock. "Chad fired me yesterday, Todd," I said. "He took my equipment and didn't ask for the transition protocols for the compliance system. The system auto-reported a fault this morning. The kid is incompetent." Todd grunted. I shouldn't have let his mother convince me to hand him the reins. He thinks he's some kind of influencer because he knows Twitter. "He's certainly disrupting the industry," I said dryly. "He says you're holding the data hostage, wants $2 million. "I'm not holding anything hostage," I replied. "The data is on a private server I manage because your IT department wouldn't. I'm offering the server and my expertise to fix the mess Chad made. That's the price." $2 million is steep, Dana. That's a lot of zeros. The EPA fine for a Title V violation starts at $37,500 per day per violation. Breach of contract with Ford? Probably $1.5 million. Lost production? $1.6 million a day. By tomorrow, your losses exceed my fee. By Friday, you're bankrupt. Silence. The wind blew into his phone. He was likely staring at a sand trap on the fairway. "If I pay it," Todd said quietly, "can you fix it? Get the feds off my back?" "I can," I said. "I have the historical data to prove the sensor fault. I can generate a corrected report, file an EPA amendment, and walk Agent Miller through the logs. The stop work order can be lifted by Thursday afternoon. But Chad, he's your problem. He won't speak to me. If he vapes near me, the price doubles." Todd barked a short laugh. "Fair enough. You're a shark, Dana. I should have made you CEO instead of that little—" "You should have," I agreed. "But here we are. Have legal draw up the agreement. Wiring instructions, escrow. I don't touch a keyboard until the money is confirmed in a third-party escrow account." "Smart. Fine. Expect the DocuSign in an hour." He hung up. My hands shook slightly, not from fear, but adrenaline. I had just negotiated a retirement package larger than my lifetime earnings. But the satisfaction would come in execution, not just the money. 6:30 p.m. DocuSign arrived. Consulting agreement and IP transfer. Clause 1. $2 million payment upon execution. Clause 2. Dana agrees to remediate EPA violations. Clause 3. Mutual non-disparagement. I signed and watched the green bar complete. 7 p.m. My bank called on the private client line. "Miss Kowalski, we have a large incoming wire pending verification. It's legitimate. Clear it." 7:45 p.m. I got in my car. Steel-toed, chemical-stained work boots, and my old Carhartt jacket. I wasn't going in as an employee. I was going in as the fixer. The parking lot was empty, except for the security guard, Chad's Tesla, and 2 black SUVs. Larry at the gate looked tired, but lit up when he saw me. He opened the gate before I swiped. "Miss Kowalski, you're back." "Just visiting, Larry," I said. Chad was waiting in the lobby. He looked 10 years older. Shirt untucked, hair messy, a mix of hatred and desperation in his eyes. "You really did it," he hissed. "You really fleeced us." I stopped, looked him over. "Chad, I didn't fleece you. I charged a stupidity tax, and you're in a high bracket. Just fix it," he muttered, turning away. "Lead the way, and get me a coffee. Black, no kombucha." The conference room smelled like stale pizza and panic. Agent Miller and Agent Rossi had laptops open. Legal counsel Gary looked like he wanted to disappear. "Miss Kowalski," Miller said, shoulders relaxing. "About time. These clowns," he gestured at Chad, tried to say a fluctuating voltage in the thermal oxidizer was a "Good evening, Agent Miller," I said, setting up my MacBook and plugging into the projector. Here's what happened. At 7:52 a.m., the system auto-reported raw data because the calibration algorithm was disabled. Why? It required manual authentication from a qualified compliance officer. Since I'd been terminated, no authentication occurred. I displayed the jagged red line. The spike looked like a massive release of Vox, but overlaying the humidity sensor data, it matched perfectly. Sensor shielding was failing. Humidity hits 80% and the sensor shorts. False positive. Work order to replace shielding had been pending 6 months. Chad had denied the budget. Miller nodded. I see the correlation. Do you have manual stack tests to confirm? I do. Daily tests for 3 years stored in the cloud archive. Thousands of organized files appeared. Silence fell. This is incredibly thorough, Rossi said. I take my job seriously, unlike some people, I said. I spent 2 hours walking them through the data, reconstructing the morning events, proving mathematically no toxin was released. The pH spike? Sensor drift caused by lack of cleaning. Maintenance budget cuts. By 10 p.m., Miller closed his laptop. All right, data supports sensor failure, not a release. Cease and desist lifted pending physical sensor replacement within 24 hours. Lucky son. If she hadn't kept these logs, this building would be condemned. Chad said nothing, staring at the table, the CEO facade gone. Thank you, Agent Miller, I said. I turned to the green tech consultants. You want the system credentials to take over? They nodded eagerly. I wrote username and password on a sticky note. User, admin, pass, Dana1. Code in Python, 40,000 lines. No comments. I slapped it on the table. Faces dropped. Without the architect, the blueprint is meaningless. Chad, I said, my contract required a remediation plan. I just delivered it. EPA is leaving. Power can be restored. Dana, maybe we acted too hastily. If you want to stay as a consultant. I laughed harshly. Stay, Chad. I just made $2 million in 4 hours. I'm not staying. Go fix the sensor yourself. You have 24 hours. I walked out, past the glass office, past the fermentation jar. Parking lot smelled like ozone and wet pavement. Next morning, Thursday, I woke up voluntarily, sat on my porch with coffee, checked my bank account. Zeros were there. Perfect, comforting zeros. Then LinkedIn. Chad viewed my profile. Smirked. Todd had fired him after the article came out. Chad was now trying a podcast on resilience. 12 listeners. Apex bought out by a competitor. Management gutted. Brenda, CFO. Larry, head of security. They offered me a VP role. I sent a photo of my toes in sand instead. I grabbed a cart in Home Depot. Not filters. Paint. People talk about quiet quitting. I didn't. I loud quit. Nuclear quit. At night, I think about it. Did I ruin a legacy? Embarrass a young man? Take money that could have saved jobs? I sip iced tea. Think about local cancer rates, benzene exposure, Chad calling my role overhead. Do I feel bad? I check my bank app. Interest alone exceeds my old salary. Nope. One last time. I open AWS. Delete instance. Warning. Action cannot be undone. Historical data lost. The plant is under new management. They don't need my ghosts. I hover, hesitate. Data was my life for 12 years. My baby grew up and tried to kill me. I click Y. Instance terminated. Laptop closed. I stand, step onto the porch. Gulf of Mexico sunset. Humid, salty, messy, victorious. I'm Dana. I fix things. And finally, I fixed my own life. Thanks for watching Cubicle Warriors. Hit subscribe. Old boss, you're on your own. Revenge of the coffee pot strikes.